One of the most frustrating groups of stories in all of media has to be Star Wars for me. Star Wars is something that I grew up around and with, but unfortunately I never really came into much direct contact with, at least until very recently. As a kid, I got a lot of joy out of watching the original trilogy with my grandfather, but other than that, I was never a massive Star Wars fan. Until last summer, I had never seen the prequels or the sequels all the way through. I had never watched the Clone Wars or Rebels TV show, and all in all, I just wasn't part of this fandom. I never got to experience the hype of The Force Awakens on release, or the immediate cataclysm that was YouTube after The Last Jedi dropped. And while some of you may be confused as to how I dodged all of this for so long, I have to say, I'm very happy I did because now I feel I have a very unique perspective on Star Wars products, free of all the bias that most fans will always have. So, with all that being said, today I want to take some time and discuss why Star Wars as a product is so frustrating to me and things I'm hoping to see from it in the future. So I'm just going to come out and say it. The majority of Star Wars products range from enjoyable bad to flat out terrible. First, let's look at the core 9 films. Practically speaking, the original 3 films are very, very solid. I think the first 2 are some of the greatest films of all time, especially considering what they did for cinema, moving forwards, and while Return of the Jedi isn't perfect, it's still pretty good, and definitely passable for the final film in the trilogy. However, there are large groups of people who really don't like this film much at all, and I honestly can't blame them. It is pretty flawed. But now, let's talk about the prequels. And while there are a lot of people who absolutely adore these films, myself included, there is no denying the fact that these are all pretty flawed. All 3, and I mean all 3, Revenge of the Sith included, suffer from some major pacing issues, dialogue issues, wooden acting, and questionable CGI at times. And while for many, this adds to their charm, there is definitely no denying that these are issues that we would have liked to have been solved. And the sequels, well, the sequels are anything but perfect. I don't think I've seen a group of movies spark more YouTube channels and video ideas than these 3 Star Wars films. At best, the sequels are disjointed and messy, with no clear story through all 3 films, direction, or real identity. And at worst, to some people, they are quite literally the worst thing to happen in the history of humankind. But beyond the core 9, there are some other Star Wars projects that are relevant to this conversation. Solo, while fun at times and a fun adventure for me in particular, is disjointed in terms of its canon, and Rogue One is actually phenomenal. So, in terms of overall quality, the main films in the Star Wars saga are the embodiment of inconsistency. But unfortunately, this isn't where the frustrations end. No, this is just the beginning. Next up, let's talk about the TV shows, both animated and not. So there have been a lot of Star Wars shows, starting off with the face of Star Wars TV, Star Wars The Clone Wars. And as someone who saw this show for the first time last summer, I absolutely loved it. Is it perfect? No. Does it always make sense? No. Does it have some boring parts? Absolutely. But the peaks of the show are very, very high. And getting episodes of the week in the Star Wars universe, while also building and expanding a long-term story, was super fun and super well done. Unfortunately, however, I cannot say the same about Star Wars Rebels, and basically every other Star Wars animated TV show other than Tales of the Jedi. Aside from Clone Wars, Tales, and a select few arcs from Star Wars Rebels, animated projects have been an absolute flop, that with some just not being talked about a lot, and others no one even knowing exist. And unfortunately, this really stunk for Bad Batch because Bad Batch is really good. And this issue only gets worse with the live-action TV shows. Star Wars live-action TV absolutely sucks for the most part. Ahsoka was boring and nothing like her character in Clone Wars, the Acolyte was insulting, The Mandalorian should have stopped after Season 2, Kenobi was a disaster that messed with the canon, and Andor is absolutely amazing. Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. Andor is one of the best Star Wars products in general. And not only is Andor a good Star Wars show, but it's one of the better shows that I've seen in the last 5 years. An actual diamond in the rough, and I cannot wait for Season 2. And I don't think I even need to get into the sales of merchandise and Star Wars comics, because at this point, no one even cares or consumes them. And with all that being said, I finally get to the point of my video. Star Wars is so incredibly frustrating because it should be one of, if not the most popular, well done, groundbreaking products in media. And instead, it's currently the laughingstock of the industry. Disney has the money. Not only that, but even though people don't like to admit it, they have the talent. Somewhere. Disney haters love to forget that for a very, very long time, Disney was at the top of the industry, and for good reason. Their products are groundbreaking in terms of both design and storytelling. So you would think that combining a groundbreaking company with another one would create something special. But instead, it seems to keep getting worse, with heads of Lucasfilm constantly greenlighting dumb stories with scripts that lack any sort of personality, character, or direction. And this is just so frustrating and upsetting because Star Wars as a product, what its foundations are made upon, is one of the greatest things ever put to screen. And not only that, but people love Star Wars so much and it has such a close tie to so many people's hearts that even if you were to make a bad movie and you gave people 20 minutes of high quality content, that 20 minutes is all they would talk about to the end of time. Not only that, but they have an overwhelming plethora of lore, history, and canon that they could use and adapt well and end up making one of the greatest universes in all of media. Star Wars frustrates me to no end because when you look at it on paper, there is no reason it shouldn't be the biggest thing in the world at all times. And honestly, all I can really hope for is that Andor Season 2 matches the quality of Season 1, and when it comes out next month, people actually watch it and tell Disney that this is the kind of content we want to see. Because if that were to happen, there is a very good chance that we might end up seeing an actual good Star Wars movie in the next few years. Or maybe not, and we'll all just remain frustrated that we haven't gotten a really good Star Wars film in a long while. But anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.